In every age, people have asked the same questions. What is the good life? How should we treat one another? What does it mean to be free or virtuous or just? What does it mean to be human? Western moral philosophy for beginners and Cleanthes Media takes you on a guided journey through the minds that shaped the moral backbone of the West, from the earliest Greek thinkers to the modern age. Lived stories of struggle, ambition, conflict, revelation, all unfolding against the sweep of history. If you've ever wanted to understand philosophy clearly, calmly, and humanly, if you want to know not just what these thinkers argued, but why it mattered, follow Western moral philosophy for beginners today and explore 10 more podcasts at Cleanthes Media. Cleanthes of Assos, who lived from 330 to 230 BCE, was a pivotal figure in the development of Stoic philosophy, succeeding Zeno of Citium as its leader and contributing significantly to its ethical framework. His work emerged during a time when philosophical schools were thriving amidst the cultural and political changes of Hellenistic Greece. Cleanthes is primarily known for his philosophical writings, particularly his hymn to Zeus and his enduring efforts to articulate the Stoic understanding of nature and ethics. These contributions make him a key figure in moral philosophy, particularly in relation to virtue, natural law, and the interconnectedness of humanity within the cosmos. At the core of Cleanthes' contribution to moral philosophy is his profound belief in living in accordance with nature, a tenet foundational to Stoic thought. This idea posits that to live well is to align one's life with the rational order of the universe, which Cleanthes famously encapsulated in his hymn. In this work, he expresses a deep reverence for the divine reason, or logos, that permeates the cosmos. For Cleanthes, nature is not merely a backdrop for human existence. It is a living entity imbued with rationality and purpose. His advocacy for understanding and embodying this natural order suggests that moral goodness is not arbitrary or socially constructed, but rather arises from aligning oneself with the universal reason that governs all beings. One of Cleanthes' significant arguments revolves around the concept that virtue is the only true good. Drawing upon the teachings of Zeno, he posited that external goods, such as wealth or health, are indifferent. They can be preferred or not preferred, but do not contribute to true happiness. Cleanthes took this idea a step further by emphasizing that living virtuously, in accordance with reason, leads to the development of inner peace and fulfillment. He believed that a person's character, cultivated through virtuous living, is what truly defines the quality of one's life. This perspective resonates deeply in contemporary discussions about moral integrity in personal and public lives. To explore how Cleanthes' ideas manifest in modern scenarios, consider the realm of politics. The Stoic belief in virtue as the highest good offers a lens through which we might evaluate the actions of our leaders. In a political landscape where partisanship often prevails, Cleanthes' emphasis on virtue urges a return to principles driven by ethical reasoning rather than mere popularity or expediency. For instance, a politician who prioritizes transparency, fairness, and the common good exhibits the Stoic ideal of virtue above the pursuit of power or wealth. This discernment challenges each of us to assess the moral character of those we choose to lead, invoking Cleanthes' call to align political actions with a higher moral order. In the field of medicine and ethics, Cleanthes' principles also yield insightful applications. As technology evolves and medical ethics become increasingly complex, the Stoic perspective prompts discussions about the ethical treatment of patients. Take, for example, the debate on genetic engineering and the consequences of playing a potential godlike role in human modification. A Cleanthes analysis would urge medical professionals to embody virtues such as compassion, justice, and respect for human dignity. Decisions should not hinge solely on what is scientifically feasible, but rather reflect an understanding of our shared humanity and the inherent moral significance of life. In our choices, whether they concern end-of-life care decisions or vaccination policies, this moral compass provides an ethical foundation that prioritizes collective well-being. Examining Cleanthes' thoughts on virtue leads us to confront certain limitations and criticisms of his stance. Some scholars argue that the Stoic insistence on virtue as the sole good might overlook the emotional and relational aspects of human existence. They contend that by focusing exclusively on rationality, moral philosophy might neglect the importance of emotions, which can furnish valuable insights and motivations. For instance, while Cleanthes and other Stoics held that emotions like anger or desire could be detrimental to virtuous living, modern psychological research reveals that emotions can also drive individuals toward profound acts of kindness and solidarity. This represents a critical divergence from Cleanthes' thinking, where emotional experiences are often categorized as obstacles to be overcome, rather than integral components of a richer human experience. Furthermore, many later thinkers pushed back against the Stoic framework regarding the role of external circumstances in moral development. For example, the Roman philosopher Cicero integrated Stoic moral tenets with an increased emphasis on natural law and human rights, highlighting that moral good must consider societal contexts. This evolution signifies a shift from Cleanthes' rigid categorization of virtue toward a more nuanced understanding that incorporates the wider community and its influences on individual morality. In connecting Cleanthes to the broader stream of Western moral thought, we can see echoes of his ideas in both earlier and later philosophers. His emphasis on reason and virtue can be traced back to Socratic notions of the good life, where knowledge and virtue are intertwined. Socrates insisted that virtue is a form of knowledge, suggesting that to know the good is to do the good. This ethical quest for knowledge resonates through Cleanthes, reaffirming his belief in the significance of rationality. Conversely, we can regard the contemporary philosopher Martha Nussbaum as a figure reflective of Cleanthes' influence. Nussbaum's capabilities approach integrates emotions and human relationships, advocating for an understanding of justice that considers emotional engagement and community realities. This perspective builds upon the Stoic foundation laid by Cleanthes, evolving it to accommodate the complexities of modern ethical dilemmas confronting individuals today. As we ponder how Cleanthes' philosophy can be apprehended on a personal level, it invites us to reflect on the guiding principles that underpin our everyday decisions. What does it mean to lead a life rooted in virtue in the face of societal pressures that often run counter to those ideals? Cleanthes inspires contemplation about our individual roles within the broader tapestry of human existence, challenging us to consider how closely our actions align with the virtues we espouse. In this way, we come full circle, understanding that the echoes of Stoic ethics continue to resonate through our lives, urging us to live with purpose, integrity, and kindness as we navigate the complexities of our modern world. Through the lens of Cleanthes, we grasp an essential truth in the intertwining of reason, virtue, and the natural. Order lies a profound call to live meaningfully, a call that remains ever relevant in our ethically complex lives today. Building on Cleanthes' emphasis on virtue and rationality, let us delve deeper into the implications of his ideas regarding cosmopolitanism, moral responsibility, and the interplay between individual actions and the broader moral fabric of society. A fundamental aspect of Cleanthes' philosophical legacy is the notion that all human beings are part of a larger community that spans beyond geographical, cultural, and temporal boundaries. This idea of cosmopolitanism, rooted in Stoic thought, posits that since we are all part of a single, rational universe, individuals should recognize their duty to one another, irrespective of petty distinctions that often divide humanity. Cleanthes' cosmopolitan vision emerges from his belief that nature is a unified whole where every rational being shares in the divine logos. This belief urges us to consider our shared humanity, thereby expanding our moral responsibility towards others, even those who may be different from ourselves. In practical terms, this perspective suggests that individual moral actions should not only consider personal virtue, but also how those actions affect the global community. In today's interconnected world, this idea holds significant relevance. For example, as climate change becomes an increasingly pressing issue, the Stoic framework encourages us to act not just for our local environment, but also in consideration of the global impact. Cleanthes would argue that our responsibility extends to future generations and the planet itself. Thus, the actions we take today, be they political, social, or environmental, bear weight not only on our immediate communities, but also on the broader moral responsibilities we share as global citizens. This ethical consideration translates into movements advocating for sustainable practices, climate justice, and equitable access to resources, driving home the point that virtue cannot be fully realized in isolation from the well-being of others. Furthermore, Cleanthes' formulation of natural law invites us to examine how our understanding of morality applies in the context of law and justice. His assertion that living according to nature means living in accordance with universal reason implies an inherent moral order that should guide human interactions and societal structures. In contemporary discussions surrounding law and human rights, Cleanthes' ideas prompt us to consider how legal systems can either uphold or undermine the principles of justice and virtue. For example, consider the ongoing debates regarding immigration policies. Striking a balance between national interests and humanitarian values illustrates the conflict between pragmatic governance and adherence to higher moral imperatives. From a Cleanthesian viewpoint, laws should reflect an understanding of our shared humanity and the virtues of compassion and justice, rather than purely nationalistic or self-serving interests. The practice of moral jurisprudence, whereby laws are evaluated against ethical principles, can help foster a legal landscape that is informed by a more universal sense of justice, reminiscent of Cleanthes' vision. As we explore the limits and challenges of Cleanthes' moral stance, we must confront a few critical criticisms regarding the practical application of his ideas. The Stoic insistence on virtue as the sole good suggests a rather austere form of ethics that has, over time, faced significant scrutiny. Critics have argued that this framework can be overly rigid and may not sufficiently account for the complexities of human emotions and relationships. Cleanthes' focus on rationality potentially marginalizes the richness of emotional life, which can play a crucial role in moral decision-making. In practical settings, emotional intelligence, understanding and managing one's feelings and those of others, can be vital in resolving conflicts and making ethical choices. Some scholars contend that Cleanthes' Stoicism, which views emotions as impediments to rationality, may overlook how feelings can motivate virtuous actions. Acts of kindness and love, often rooted in emotional experiences, can sometimes drive individuals to make choices that align with a broader ethical vision. Moreover, the insistence on viewing external circumstances as indifferent presents a challenge in contexts where socioeconomic factors deeply influence individuals' ability to act virtuously. Critics argue that external conditions can limit a person's capacity to embody virtue, as access to education, healthcare, and socioeconomic opportunities shapes moral capabilities. This critique aligns with modern discussions on social justice, which advocate recognizing and addressing systemic inequalities as part of ethical responsibility. In response to these criticisms, later philosophers expanded on Stoic thought, striving to reconcile the relationship between virtue, emotional life, and external circumstances. One notable thinker is Seneca, who, while maintaining Stoic ideals, acknowledged the complexity of human emotions. He illustrated how emotions, when balanced and understood, could contribute to both personal growth and moral action, providing a more nuanced understanding of virtue that encompasses both the rational and emotional dimensions of human existence. Additionally, contemporary moral thinkers' views, such as that of ethical pluralism, offer insightful alternatives to the Stoic framework. They argue for an approach that recognizes multiple sources of moral value: justice, care, and community, allowing for a richer tapestry of ethical analysis, one that can better address the multifaceted nature of moral dilemmas facing individuals today. Furthermore, in connecting Cleanthes to the ongoing dialogue in Western moral philosophy, we can see precursors to his ideas in Aristotle's virtue ethics. Aristotle introduced the notion of the golden mean, advocating for a balanced approach to virtues, contrasting with the Stoic view that advocates for unwavering adherence to reason. While Cleanthes emphasizes a singular focus on virtue aligned with rationality, Aristotle acknowledges the complexity of human experience, suggesting that living well requires not just rationality, but also the cultivation of emotions and relationships. In a more modern context, the work of philosophers such as Peter Singer can be viewed as a bridge that incorporates elements of Cleanthesian ethics, while also addressing the criticisms of rigid virtue ethics. Singer's effective altruism promotes the idea that ethical responsibility extends beyond individual virtues to include actions that positively impact the world. His pragmatic approach resonates with Cleanthes' cosmopolitan vision, reinforcing a call to consider the broader implications of one's actions toward the well-being of others. As we reflect on how Cleanthes' moral philosophy might inform our own lives, it becomes clear that the essence of his teachings encourages a devoted examination of how we connect with the broader world around us. Cleanthes compels us to assess not only our actions as isolated events, but also to consider their implications for others and for our shared existence. In moments of ethical decision-making, we can ask ourselves, am I acting in accord with the virtues of justice, compassion, and integrity? How do my choices align with the broader moral fabric of our communities and the natural order of things? Are my decisions influenced by rational understanding, or have I been swayed by emotions and societal pressures? By integrating Cleanthian principles into our reflections, we honor the idea that living a life of virtue requires mindfulness and awareness of how we contribute not only to our own flourishing, but also to the flourishing of humanity as a whole. Ultimately, Cleanthes urges us to consider our moral responsibilities within the intricate web of human connections. As we navigate our increasingly complex world, let us take a moment to contemplate how we too can embody the Stoic ideals he championed. This commitment to virtue, enriched by an understanding of our shared humanity and the natural order, can help chart a path towards a more ethical and purposeful existence. It invites us to think deeply about how our choices today echo into the lives of others tomorrow, reminding us that every action is imbued with meaning and consequence in our interconnected lives. Cleanthes' legacy extends beyond the confines of individual ethical consideration and encompasses a broader vision of human interconnectedness and social responsibility. His notion of cosmopolitanism is deeply tied to the idea of the rational universe, where all humans share a common origin and purpose. This shared rationality implies not just a passive acknowledgement of our interconnectedness, but an active engagement in the moral duties that arise from this recognition. The Stoic framework compels individuals to move beyond self-interest and embrace an ethics that prioritizes the welfare of the collective over the merely personal. This aspect of Cleanthian thought resonates vividly in modern discussions surrounding global citizenship and social responsibility. In an era where globalization connects diverse cultures and societies in unprecedented ways, Cleanthes' ideas prompt us to reflect on our duties toward people across the globe. For instance, while we may face our challenges, such as economic hardship or political strife, Cleanthes encourages us to extend our moral concern beyond our immediate context. Activism in support of global human rights, refugee assistance, and sustainable development can be seen as practical manifestations of the cosmopolitan values that Cleanthes espoused. Take the example of the global response to climate change. The debate surrounding environmental stewardship often hinges on balancing national interests with the urgent need for a cooperative global response. Cleanthes' belief in the rational unity of nature implies that neglecting ecological health not only endangers the planet, but also jeopardizes human well-being. His framework challenges individuals and nations alike to consider the implications of their environmental policies on distant shores and future generations. Fostering a mentality of collective responsibility. Climate activism, grounded in Cleanthesian ethics, could encourage local actions that resonate globally, recognizing that protecting our planet is an ethical imperative that transcends borders. Moreover, the notion of shared human dignity, central to Cleanthes' cosmopolitan perspective, presents an evaluative framework for many contemporary issues, such as immigration and asylum policies. As nations grapple with the complexities of migration, it becomes essential to assess these policies through the lens of virtue and shared humanity. Cleanthes' philosophy urges us to recognize that migrants and refugees are not merely statistics, but human beings deserving of compassion and respect. The imperative to safeguard their rights and dignity reflects a commitment to the moral principles Cleanthes championed, a commitment that urges us to act with integrity even when faced with challenging circumstances. In considering how Cleanthes' views on moral responsibility apply to modern technology, we encounter the ethical dilemmas posed by advancements in artificial intelligence and biotechnology. The rapid development of these fields raises concerns regarding privacy, autonomy, and the implications of machine decision-making on human lives. Cleanthes' philosophy prompts us to scrutinize the characters and motivations driving these developments. Are they aligned with the overarching goal of enhancing human welfare and dignity? For instance, in the realm of AI, ethical considerations must address not only the efficiency of technology, but also its potential to reinforce biases or erode human agency. Drawing from Cleanthes' emphasis on virtue, we are called to ensure that technological innovations reflect our moral obligations and do not exist in a vacuum devoid of ethical scrutiny. Companies and developers should be encouraged to embody virtues such as transparency, accountability, and fairness, taking care to acknowledge how their creations impact society at large. Additionally, the debate surrounding biotechnology, particularly regarding gene editing, introduces pressing ethical questions. Cleanthesian virtue ethics would advocate for a careful examination of the technology's implications on human dignity and the sanctity of life. The capacity to modify genetic materials necessitates adherence to moral principles that respect human integrity and the natural order. As we engage with these advancements, we must reflect on how closely our actions align with the Stoic ideals of virtue and the overarching concern for the greater good. Delving deeper into Cleanthes' contributions reveals a tension between the Stoic emphasis on rational detachment and the need for emotional engagement in ethical decision-making. Critics of Cleanthian Stoicism often argue that an unyielding focus on reason can lead to an emotionally barren approach to ethics, where warmth and empathy may be overshadowed by an austere invocation of virtue. This critical perspective posits that while Cleanthes rightly highlights the importance of rationality, it is equally crucial to acknowledge the role of emotions in shaping our moral landscape and guiding our interactions with others. For this reason, the contemporary relevance of Cleanthes' philosophy benefits from grappling with the dialectic between reason and emotion. A more comprehensive approach to ethics may require combining Stoic principles with insights from emotional intelligence, recognizing that feelings, when understood and regulated, can enhance ethical behavior. Compassion, love, and empathy have historically motivated individuals to act in alignment with virtue, challenging a strictly rational interpretation of ethical behavior. This understanding is echoed in modern psychological theories that investigate the interplay between moral reasoning and emotions. Evidence suggests that emotional responses often guide moral judgments and actions, illuminating the nuanced nature of our ethical lives. It illustrates how, far from being antithetical to rational thought, emotions can serve as a vital compass, linking individual actions to broader moral frameworks, thereby reinforcing the emphasis Cleanthes placed on virtue and moral responsibility. Furthermore, in addressing the limitations of Cleanthesian ethics, we can draw connections to the broader discourse on social justice, which advocates for recognizing systemic inequalities and the historical contexts that shape individuals' lived experiences. For Cleanthes, virtue existed sacrosanct, but it is essential to appreciate that the capacity to embody this virtue can be substantially influenced by socioeconomic conditions, educational opportunities, and cultural capital. This awareness can motivate modern ethical discussions on how to balance clean ideals with the messy realities of human society. The call for restorative justice, which seeks to address injustices through avenues of healing and accountability, rather than punitive measures, resonates with the Stoic emphasis on virtue, positioning moral integrity as a way to foster genuine reconciliation and understanding. The principles that emerge from restorative justice, accountability, compassion, and community reflect a complex interplay of the virtues that Cleanthes espoused while addressing the realities of systemic injustice. We can also explore the ways in which Cleanthes' ideas intersect with contemporary feminist ethics, which invite us to consider the relational dynamics that shape moral lives. Feminist thinkers often highlight how constructions of morality have historically prioritized rational principles over the experiences and voices of marginalized groups. By integrating a relational understanding of ethics that values emotions and interconnectedness, Cleanthes' cults and values cosmopolitanism can inform a richer ethical perspective that champions inclusivity. In bridging Cleanthes' Stoicism with contemporary ethical discussions, we are prompted to reflect not only on our capacity for individual virtue, but also on our collective responsibility toward one another. The recognition that we are all interlinked within a larger cosmos implores us to acknowledge our role in fostering a just, equitable world, one that embraces differences while upholding shared humanity. Reflecting on these insights brings us to question how we, as individuals, can embody Cleanthesian principles in our personal journeys. What kind of virtues do we aspire to cultivate in our lives? How can we practice compassion while striving for integrity, ensuring our moral actions resonate with the larger world? Cleanthes encourages us to engage with these questions thoughtfully, facilitating self-reflection to navigate complex moral landscapes. In closing, Cleanthes of Assos, through his articulation of Stoic ethics, presents a framework that not only advocates for individual virtue and rational living, but also calls for a commitment to social responsibility, compassion, and our shared humanity. His call for a cosmopolitan ethic serves as a guide for arriving at moral decisions that transcend the individual, emphasizing our collective responsibility as we navigate the intricacies of our interconnected lives. As we move forward in exploring philosophical teachings, let us remain mindful of the legacy of Cleanthes. His work not only enriches our understanding of Stoic ethics, but continues to inspire critical discourse around modern moral challenges. The encouragement to lead lives imbued with virtue, grounded in rational understanding, resonates as poignantly today as it did in ancient times. The wisdom of Cleanthes calls upon us to reflect on how we can contribute to a world that values justice, compassion, and integrity, shaping our actions in the light of a shared moral order that transcends our individual experiences. Thus, as we engage with our decisions, let us draw upon the philosophical legacy of Cleanthes to guide us toward a life of purpose, one that ultimately uplifts not just ourselves, but the entire community of humanity wherein we are all inextricably woven together.
Midnight rails under silver moon, dusty boots on a winding road. A shadow's the only friend I've known since she packed up and let me go. Empty whiskey bottle on the seat, her laugh still echoes in my bones. Saddle's heavy with memories. I ride alone where the wind still blows. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Sunrise paints the horizon gold, but it don't warm a lonesome soul. Every town I pass feels half her size. Every trail's haunted by goodbye. I whisper prayers to open skies, hoping someday my heart'll find a brand new path beyond the pain, where broken hearts can heal in time. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be.